product rule is really similar to the quotient rule, which we're learning in this video. Not really a big fan of this little Hody high, Heidi low, or Heidi ho. I'm not a big fan of this. So just go with this. This is a basic definition. Notice it's the same as the product rule on top, just with a minus sign. And that's why I taught you to write it G times F prime and F times G prime, just to help us stay consistent for the quotient rule. That way, if you know one of them, you can easily come up with both. And then on the bottom is G squared, not G prime squared, but G squared. And it is a minus sign going on in between there. So let's take a look at this one. So, like I said, I can quickly remember it because I remember F prime times G for the product rule, and then F times G prime. So I just remembered that from the product rule. F prime first, so in the second one I'll put G prime. And this time there's a minus between, and G is being squared. I don't even know I wrote all of that. I could have just done like this. Just a quick way to remember for us to remind ourselves over G squared. It's quick and easy to write that, right? Just like the product rule. So what is F and what is G? Well, F is the top function, which is X, so F prime is 1. And G is the bottom function, which is sine of X, so G prime is cosine X. So this is pretty simple. So we're going to do F prime times G, so 1 times sine X minus F times G prime, so X times cosine of X, all over G squared, which is sine of X squared. So just to simplify that, that's sine of X minus X cosine of X over sine squared is another way we can write it, X. Now, they're not going to be picky here. You could leave it this way because it's free response, but in multiple choice, it's probably going to look more like this. And there's nothing I can factor out of the top. And the bottom is always already factored, so you don't usually have to mess with the bottom. Here's a good one. I know I put this in there for a reason. So F is square root of X. So F prime is 1 over 2 square root of X. You can go through writing the fraction and all of that if you want to. G is sine of X, so G prime is cosine X. So I'm going to run it right through the formula. So we'll have F prime times G, so that's 1 over 2 square root of X times sine X minus F, which is square root of X, times G prime, cosine of X. All of this over G squared, so over sine of X squared. All right, so notice this looks nothing like what we have up here. So what am I going to do? Well, I basically have a fraction. Let me just rewrite this all as sine of X over 2 square root of X. And then I'm going to realize that I need to get a common denominator. This is currently over 1, right? So I'm going to multiply it by the square root of X over the square root of X. And what happens there is we'll get square root of X times square root of X is just X. So this will be minus X cosine of X on the top over square root of X. And I'm still missing something. I'm missing a 2. So that'll make it actually a 2x cosine of X over the 2 square root of X, all over sine squared X. So then from there, we'll combine the numerators to get sine of X minus 2x cosine of X over 2 square root of X. And then all of this is over sine squared X. Let me just move this down, give us more room for this problem. So what we have now is a fraction over a fraction. So this is over 1. So let's go ahead and flip it and multiply. And so I think you'll find the final answer now. Sine x minus 2x cosine x should be on the top. So that would be A. And then on the bottom would be 2 square root of x times sine squared. So A would be it for that one. So that one's about, I think, as complicated as it gets. Then I wanted to go over one with cosine. I'm going to do this one in class. It's a little bit easier. Let's do the one that's a little bit more difficult. So for this one, f is e to the x. So f prime, really easy, is e to the x as well. And then g is cosine of x. So g prime is negative sine of x. Run it through the quotient rule, f prime times g, so e to the x times cosine of x, minus f is e to the x times g is negative sine x, all over cosine of x squared, because it's g squared. So then from here, we can rewrite the double negative becomes a plus. We have e to the x cosine x plus e to the x sine of x, all over cosine squared x. And then you can, if you want to, factor out the e to the x on the top. And that part's optional. It just depends on the multiple choice. For the free response, you can leave it like this. And I think what makes that hard is just that double negative there. Just make sure that becomes a plus.